But first up, she is the author of This Fight Is Our Fight, the battle to save America's middle class, Senator Elizabeth Warren. How you doing? Great to see you. Thank you. Thank you. You love California, don't you? I mean, it's the last liberal bastion.
No,
right?
come on. People all across this country are energized right now, and I want to tell you something.
Yeah. They may be all energized across the country, but all across the country, they don't have a Democratic governor, Democratic senator, Democratic parliament. We are where liberalism is at the forefront. You've got to admit that.
So, look, I actually see this a little differently. The way I see it right now is that, look at what happened on health care. I want to say thank you to everybody in this audience, everybody out there who called or wrote a letter or emailed or Facebook, because we beat back the biggest assault on health care in the history of America. And it didn't happen because we had enough Democratic votes in the House or in the Senate. What we had are our voices, and we got out there and made them heard in Washington and others. Yep.
Well, okay, so let's talk about your book, first of all. We don't want to forget.
Do that.
No, we don't want to forget that important thing. And it's an important thesis you have, which is about the middle class and what's happened to them. And let's be honest, it started with Reagan. Peace and blessings be upon him. But it began, I mean, you talk about the period from 1980 to 2015, where the middle class was before and where the middle class was after 1980. Tell us.
So, let's do the first part, and then it's 1935, coming out of the Great Depression all the way to 2016. Year after year after year, basically GDP goes up, America gets richer. It's a good story. But divided into time period one, time period two, 1935 to 1980. What happens during that time? We have regulation of the big banks, giant companies. We enforce antitrust rules, put a cop on the beat on Wall Street, have Glass-Steagall in place, and progressive taxation, and make a lot of investments.
GI Bill?
That's right, in opportunity, in education, in infrastructure, in research, scientific research, medical research. And so, GDP's going up, 1935 to 1980. The 90% of America, everybody outside the top 10%, the 90% get 70% of all the income growth in America. And that happened across the board. It happened. Americans participated. The pie got bigger and we all got a little more to eat. 1980, what happens then? Ronald Reagan, deregulation, fire the cops on Wall Street. And the big one, cut taxes for those at the top, and then invest less in education, in infrastructure, in basic research. 1980 to 2016, GDP keeps going right on up. This is the long arc story in the book. GDP keeps going right on up, and how do the 90% do? They get 0% of the new income growth. Nearly 100% of new income growth in this country goes to the top 10%. That's why I wrote this book, is because we got to get in there and fight back, and that's what this book is about how we're going to fight back. We got to take back this country.
Well, let me fight back a little.
All right, I'm ready.
Because 1980 to 2015, there's some Democrats in there.
Oh, no kidding.
2 terms of Barack Obama, 2 terms of Bill Clinton. So, and sometimes when they controlled the House and the Senate too. So, what happened there? Don't the Democrats bear some responsibility for that? Aren't they supposed to put the brakes on this? And
absolutely. No, look, it worked both ways.
Yeah.
1935 to 1980, we also had some Republicans. Who were president, like Eisenhower, right? And Nixon, who actually is the guy who started the Environmental Protection Agency.
Right.
And the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
Great guy.
Solid. Solid. You know, I never thought, but this president is making Nixon
Bush
actually
looks good next to this guy.
Exactly.
I look at old clips of Bush, and I'm like,
you
wow,
think,
I wasn't
those
scared
were
of
the
him.
days. Right.
Yeah.
But but that really is the point. These are long arc movements. And basically what we've done in America is we've tried two different theories. This is kind of the thesis of the book. We tried the one where you use progressive taxation, you use some sensible regulations to make sure the playing field is level. And you know what? We built the greatest middle class on the face of the earth.
But I can see why the real Americans out there, the Trump voters, say a pox on both their houses. Because this trend you're describing was not interrupted by Democratic administrations.
Well, it was slowed down some by Democratic administrations. And I want to be fair here. Democratic administrations are the ones who put some of the brakes on, who did somewhat more antitrust enforcement. And let's keep in mind, it's a Democratic administration that went for universal health care with Obamacare, or at least pushed in that direction, and Dodd-Frank, and built, my personal favorite, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Yes.
So now we have another Republican president who just presented another tax plan, which is, I mean, I've seen Republican tax plans like this, but not quite as brazen, because this one doesn't even pretend. It's just about, wouldn't it be great if rich people didn't pay taxes?
Right.
But he's going to go to a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania tomorrow and tell his fans all about this, about how his kids are not going to have to pay taxes because they got rid of the estate tax. And they're still with him. They're not with you. Explain to me what that disconnection is.
Actually, I'm going to push back. I disagree with you. When you talk...
Well, his fans are not with you.
Hold on.
Come on.
When we
talk... They don't like you, Pocahontas.
When you talk about what's really the basic pieces of a progressive agenda, raise the minimum wage, expand Social Security, reduce the cost of college so people don't get crushed by student loan debt, more, not less regulation of financial institutions. No, hold on a second. Progressive taxation, make those at the top pay their fair share. America, Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians, vegetarians, Americans, by about 2 to 1, are with us on that. The progressive agenda is America's agenda. We cannot forget that. And we cannot
but this is the disconnect I'm talking about. I agree with you. They're with you on the issues, and then they vote for him.
Well, then we
what is that problem? And now, you know, I'm not a politician. I don't have to be nice. I say people are stupid all the time. So let's not say that today, because you are a politician. But don't they bear some burden for not the people, for not looking into this a little more closely and seeing who is really on their side? I mean, Donald Trump ran as a populist, and now he presents his tax plan. 2 Goldman Sachs guys get up there. Thank God we didn't elect Hillary with her Wall Street connection.
Yeah, exactly.
And present this plan on one page that basically is, you know, let's give all the money to the rich people because they always do what's right with it. You know, thank God for the rich people, because they take that money, they put it back, it trickles down on you, you lucky bastards. We've seen this before. The voters have seen it before. His voters are not young. They lived through it. How come they fall for the con?
So, look, I think that Donald Trump tapped into a real anger in America. People are angry, and let's face it, they are right to be angry. They are angry over the fact that young people can't get an education without getting crushed by student loan debt. They are angry.
But it's misplaced if they vote for him and not you.
So
this is, how do we solve that problem?
So
we all agree the anger is justified.
Okay.
But
let's do it. The first step is our side has to acknowledge the anger and has to say, yeah, people are angry and they are right to be angry. This is what I talk about
including white people,
book.
Right?
Everybody has to stop and say there is anger and there is good reason for
a lot of those real
anger.
Americans think that only Trump cares about them and that Democrats only are into identity politics. And sometimes it looks that way.
Look.
And since the Democrats lost every election and they don't control one branch of government, doesn't it behoove them to look at that?
This is the reason I wrote this book.
Okay.
I wrote this book. I mean, this is my life's work.
I know.
This is you know this. This is what I've worked on forever, and it's what happens to working families.
No, you
know
have
my
the street
background.
cred for this. Yes.
You know my background on this.
Yes.
And you know where I come from, and you know
I do.
that it is the fact. Here I am. I am the daughter of a janitor who ended up as a professor at Harvard Law School and as a United States Senator because America invested in kids like me.
I know.
I'm deeply grateful for that. I recognize that those opportunities today are lost. They are gone. And so the question for me is, how are we going to rebuild that America? How are we going to get enough people together to say that democracy is going to work again, that this is not going to be a country run by and for rich people only. It's going to be a country run for the rest of us.
No, I know.
I do my best in this book to talk about how we make our voices heard, how we come together, and how we fight back. In fact, I'll tell you something. This book ends on a very hopeful note. It ends, I went to Trump's inauguration. I watched. I wanted to see it. I wanted it burned into my eyes. You know? My view on this was if there was ever going to be a moment where I was like, oh, I'm too tired to get up, all I had to do was close my eyes and think, oh, God, I'm up. I'm up. I'm up. I'm ready. I'm back in the fight. But the next day, it's the next day when the world changed. When the history of this time is written, sure, it's going to be about Donald Trump's election. But you know what it's going to be about? It's going to be about the day of the Women's March. It's going to be about the day we made our voices heard. And here's the deal. We have real evidence that it matters. In the fights over health care, remember how the Republicans in the House 60-plus times had voted to repeal Obamacare? You remember how Donald Trump said, on day one, right? How many times did he say, on day one, we're going to repeal Obamacare?
Okay, so we lied once.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But here's the deal. We really didn't have the votes in the House or the Senate to stop him.
Right.
What stopped him was enough people across this country, and not just Democrats, who got engaged in the fight, who started talking about, are you kidding me? You mean you want to change the law so you could discriminate against people with pre-existing medical conditions? And when they actually saw the plan, knock 24 million people off health care coverage, raise costs for middle-class families, so you can give a tax break to those at the top, a handful of millionaires and billionaires? No way. And so I get it that the first version of Trump Care failed because for some Republicans, it was not brutal enough. But here's the deal. The rest of the Republicans were not willing to follow them over that cliff. And the reason is because people around this country made their voices heard. We got to tap into that. We got to magnify that.
And they need a leader. You know, I have to say, you know, when you talk, people get very excited. When Hillary stopped talking, they got excited. So, Donald Trump... Donald Trump today was talking about running against you next time. No pressure. Senator Elizabeth Warren, everybody. No pressure. Thank you for making the flight and everything. I don't know how you do it. Elizabeth Warren.